Clerk, call the roll.
Lynn Whitley, KJ.
Here.
William Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Devin Allen, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Pickens, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation today will be delivered by Minister Robert D. Clay from the Baker Boulevard Church of Christ in Fort Worth. Thank you so much for coming out today. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
I'd like to thank you for the privilege to be here today. Let every soul be subject to the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. Let's pray. Father God, you are the Lord of all creation. We lift you up in the honor and praise that is due you. Today we invite your presence here to be with us in this time of meeting and decision making. We pray for your comfort and healing for our loved ones who are experiencing life-threatening illnesses such as cancer or the COVID-19 virus. Ever-loving Father, we pray that you will soon show our doctors and scientists the way for a vaccine for this terrible threat to our lives. Lord, we thank you for the men and women of our police force, fire departments, and EMS personnel who watch over and protect and care for all these souls living in this great city. Father, we give thanks for the men and women who are appointed here to the governing of our wonderful city, and we pray for your blessing over this meeting. Lend them your wisdom and guidance and virtue as they discuss the many issues before them today. Give them your spirit of unity and understanding and patience as they listen and work with one another. Remind them, Lord, of the awesome nature of their work here and their responsibility for the souls of each person within the boundaries of this province. Finally, Father, we pray for your blessing for each of us and your guidance each day as we strive to abide in you. For this is the day you have made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. We lift up this prayer to you in the name of Jesus Christ, our Savior. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have two announcements as it relates to the agenda. The first one is under the County Administrator section, item 9A2. There's a revised court communication in your red folder. We added one action item under that particular section that we'll take up when we get to that particular item. Also under the Administrator's office, item 9A5. This was the seeking approval to issue Series 2020 hospital revenue bonds. We're going to remove that from the agenda. We're not going to ask you to take any action on this particular item. Also, members of the court, as we have in the past, we're going to change out a little bit of our agenda as far as how we proceed this morning. Once we get into the administrator section, we're going to go ahead and ask Mr. Tenasia to come up and do his weekly health update.
Thank you. With that, court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of October the 6th.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Fickens. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Under some proclamations, Commissioner Brooks, I believe you have one.
Yes, it's in honor of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Your Honor, it's for ratification only. but would you please read it into the record?
I sure will. I think.
I've got a copy right here. I'll read it. Whereas the mission of the Tarrant County Council on Family Violence is to develop and promote a comprehensive and effective community effort to reduce family violence and domestic violence homicides in Tarrant County. And whereas domestic violence programs, professionals, and advocates of nonviolence have joined together with the Tarrant County Council on Family Violence to provide the citizens of Tarrant County and the state of Texas with information on domestic violence. And whereas Domestic Violence Awareness Month provides an excellent opportunity for citizens to learn more about preventing domestic violence and to show support for the numerous individuals and organizations who provide critical advocacy, services, and assistance to victims. And whereas 1 in every 3 women and 1 in every 7 men will experience domestic violence during their lifetime. Domestic violence violates an individual's privacy, dignity, security, and humanity due to the systematic use of physical, emotional, sexual, psychological, and economic control and or abuse. And whereas the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County actively endorses the mission of the Tarrant County Council on Family Violence and the Intimate Partner Violence Felony Prosecution Team of the Tarrant County District Attorney's Office to end the tragic cycle of violence and eliminate the IPV epidemic from our community. Now, therefore be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, do hereby proclaim the month of October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Tarrant County and urge all citizens to actively participate in scheduled activities and programs working towards the elimination of domestic violence. In witness whereof we have hereunto set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 13th day of October 2020. And although this is for ratification only, I would like to recognize Elena Bangs of the Criminal District Attorney's Office Intimate Partner Violence Felony Prosecution Team. She is the chief of that group. So I move approval.
Second.
And we got a motion and a second. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much. Any comments or thoughts you'd like to make at this time?
Yes, thank you so much. I want to thank you guys very much on behalf of CDA Sharon Wilson and also of the Intimate Partner Violence Team. We know that this year, as in all years, has been difficult and has been more difficult. We know that there's been a big message to stay home and stay safe. And so in speaking to our survivors and victims who we know staying home might not be safe for, we appreciate that this community has come together and the county has come together to recognize that we are still here. We are not tolerating this. We are not going to allow offenders to continue to have that number be at what it is, and that we are open and we are focusing on offenders, and we appreciate all of you very much for taking this very seriously.
Thank you, and thank you and your unit for the work that you do. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bangs. Judge, you generally begin every speech with a statement about intimate partner violence. You want to roll it out here this morning?
Well, what I said for the longest time was there was never an excuse for someone to have domestic violence for a spouse or a child, and I especially encouraged the men in the room to take every opportunity that they could to talk about this and to talk about that there was never justification for that. And then once we had Sharon as our DA, she said she's going to take it one step further, that if they refuse to hear that and to understand that she was going to prosecute as much as she could. And so now I say that. We gave you 2 or 3 years and encouraged you not to do it. Now, if you continue to do it, we're going to provide other encouragement not to do that. And I really appreciate Sharon and her focus on that and the creating of the unit. Sharon, is there anything you wish to say at this time?
Well, I guess first I'm grateful to Elena and her team and from the beginning of the work that they've done on this. But I'm especially grateful to you all because, when I came to you in late 2015, early 2016 and asked for an entire new team of lawyers to fight this, we were second only to Harris County in the number of homicides by loved ones. And you all immediately, I think it was unanimous, and thank you, because you all immediately addressed that. We got the team standing up. We've been able to work with law enforcement and have really improved our work on prosecution in Tarrant County. And it's not easy for you all to say, yes, we're going to pay for that whole thing. But it's made a big difference, and I'm grateful to y'all for that, so thank you.
Thank you.
Judge, I would encourage you in your remarks to broaden the scope to include the 1 in 7 men who are victims of intimate partner violence.
I will, and I have said that it's not solely women that are abused from that standpoint, and so it is something that I have felt was important enough that I have done that, and as you indicated, anytime I get up to speak, I try to do that. Okay, the next thing on...
We haven't voted on...
Yeah, we did. We voted early on that one, didn't we? Okay.
We did? Okay, cool.
It's United Way time again. And we have with us today Leah King and Faye Ballou from the United Way. And I guess as we kick this off, first off, I'll ask if there's anything y'all would like to come forward and say at this time. And Wilder, are you just wandering?
I got something. I got a handle.
Looking for something to eat.
Good morning.
Good morning, Leah.
Hi, Leah.
Hi. It's great to be back and to see you and to be here at this time of year. It's obviously an exciting time of year for all of us at United Way. And we are so thrilled to have the county get ready to kick off its first ever online campaign. So congratulations for moving over to the electronic world. But more importantly, I'm going to encourage everybody here to really step up. We understand what's happening to so many of our friends and neighbors and family members in the community as a result of the environment that we're living in. And so now is a great time to really look a little bit deeply into each of ourselves and do what we can to support our friends and neighbors. So I'm interested to hear what kind of fun you're going to have for this campaign and what kind of challenges you'll have amongst your respective departments, as well as with the city.
Well, now I understand that the city has, their leader this year is Dana.
That's right.
And that Dana has said she is really coming after us.
She's coming after you.
And that she thinks that she's going to be able to break the trend of basically them losing every year except for the first year.
Good luck with that.
And so, I take her a little seriously, but not much. And we'll see what she has. But I tell you what I've decided that I want to do in an effort to try to encourage folks to give a little bit extra or maybe to participate for the first time. Our percentage of participation has not been stellar. and we've been below 10%. And so one of the things I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of make it an either or. But if we can hit 25% participation, and by that I mean they need to give at least $26. That would be equivalent to $1 per paycheck to United Way. Or if we can get to the $120,000 level, and both of those are pretty, I think they're reachable, but they're not easily reachable. Because I don't want to make it too easily reachable, then I will shave my head.
Oh, my.
Somebody's paying attention.
I will shave my head, and here's the way we could do this, because I want to give multiple incentives. And so, one, the department who gives the most money can designate one person to take a swipe with the shears. The department that I know you're just sitting here envisioning me bald up here. I can just see this. But the department that has the highest percentage of participation, and if we have several departments that are 100%, we'll reach in the hat and pull one name out, and they can designate somebody. And then just on an individual basis, if you give through payroll deduction or just a one-time gift between $26, $1 a week, or $150, then your name will be put into a hat and it'll be drawn out, and that one individual can either do it, or if they're bashful, they can designate somebody else to do it. And if they give between 151 up to 500, we'll pull another name out of that one. And then for anybody who gives over 500, we'll put them all in a deal and we'll pull it out. So that's conceivably 5 people who will have an opportunity to make one run with the shear on the head. And it can't be a consecutive circuit. It's going to be one run. And then I'm going to bring the person who cuts my hair in. I've already had this little chat with her that if this happens, she's going to come in and clean it up. Because she says, yeah, it's not as easy as everybody may think it is.
What has Brenda said about living with a bald-headed dude?
Well, I will say that she said that if we're going to do this, we're not doing it until January. I'm not going bald through the Christmas pictures. So if we're going to do it, and I'm not going to New Year's Eve party, although I'm very anxious to get 2020 behind me, I will do this at the first court meeting in January if we get to the 120, or if we get 25% appreciation now, or participation, excuse me. And to give you an example, that's about 8. We're about 8% right now, so that's going to be a stretch. And last year we gave almost 80,000, so that's about a 50% increase. And so y'all come get me. That's all I got to say. And I guess what you could do is you could go to Dana and tell her that this is what I've done, and if she wants, if she loses, maybe she'll agree to shave her head.
Oh, wow. So I'm not going to speak for Dana. I will say that she will likely have a challenge of her own. I'm looking forward to coming back every week and encouraging everybody here to step up, because that's a very doable challenge. I'm shocked. And I'm
my
really
wife
excited.
was not totally happy about this, I will say.
I can imagine that. But the enthusiasm is definitely appreciated and needed, and the fun as well. I'm going to personally, in 2 Saturdays, be taking 2 pies to the face because my team got to 100% for the first time. And I don't know, it's not shaving my head, but I'm not looking forward to pies in the face either. So,
well, and I want to say I believe very strongly in the United Way and the way they handle things and the way they do things. And as such, in the early years when I first started work, it was almost you're forced to give. And we don't do that anymore. And I don't want anybody or any department head to put pressure on their employees to give. The online portal this year will allow people to go in and to make their gifts and not have to turn in a form or not. But I feel very strongly in what y'all do and the flexibility that you've shown through this year of COVID, you've stepped up and helped with delivery, helped with PPE. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. You know, in the past, we have we have individually done our own particular events to try to raise money. This year we said, okay, bringing people together is not the thing that we're about this year. And so we are going, as Commissioners Court, we're going to go out and obtain items, and we're going to have an auction. It's going to be an online auction. It will begin on November the 6th and will conclude on November the 20th. And we'll have any number of items on there. And if anybody else would like to, put things in the auction, then we can do that. And this will be the way to raise money in lieu of eating yourself across the county. I mean, we had hamburgers, we had fish fry. I know you had, I believe, breakfast. You've had different things.
We've had breakfast and
Devin had fajitas, and you had barbecue. So like I said, we've eaten our way across the county with United Way. So you're not going to be able to gain weight this year, but you can lighten your pocketbook. And we'll be glad to help you lighten that weight as opposed to you gaining weight from eating.
Well, I just want to leave you with this, and this is something that touched me and many people on our team. We know that many people are struggling just to feed themselves or families, and we've been fortunate enough to step up and help some apartment complexes and families there that are struggling. And the gratitude that you see from those beneficiaries and those recipients is beyond words, and to the point where families come out and say, I don't have anything to give you, but I'll pray for you. And so I want to leave you with a prayer of just hope for the future. We know that this has been a tough year for many. We say thank you for all that you do, not just with United Way. The work that's come before this court this year has been tremendous, and so we offer our prayers and our sincere gratitude to you as well.
Well, thank you, Leah. Thank you for everything United Way does. We've had employees, and we know of employees who have benefited from United Way. Again, I want to stress that you can give it. I always give some to specific charities. And others, and then the remainder I give to the United Way and let them spread that out. But at the same time, I would say for those monies that I give to specific charities, there's no administrative fee. United Way passes that through dollar for dollar, and we appreciate that opportunity. And I think by allowing it to be done on a paycheck by paycheck basis, that allows the employee to not have to come out of pocket all at one time. So. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Leah, Faye, thank you all for being here today.
Before you go, he solidifies that challenge. Judge Whitley, you do know that at your age, that stuff doesn't grow back all the time.
Are you speaking from experience?
Be that as it may, it doesn't come back.
Well, I will admit that I'm a little nervous about that. The lady who does my hair said, it might come back a little curly or it might come back straight. We just never know what might happen.
As long as it comes back, that's a good sign.
Well, I am kind of nervous about that. And I think we have a video that we're going to run at this time. So let's go ahead and hit the video.
Hi, this is Tarrant County Judge Glenn Whitley, and today I want to talk with you about this year's United Way campaign. This year we've worked with the United Way to create a convenient online portal that you can access either through this video by clicking a link below or going to the Tarrant County webpage. The mission of the United Way this year is Reimagine Tarrant County, Rebuilding a Better Community. And I can't think of a more appropriate mission given everything that has occurred this year surrounding COVID-19. There's a couple of things which I really want to call your attention to as you prepare your pledge form for this year. First, you can give the money to the United Way and let them spread that out among the charities and among the different activities that they feel like are most in need of the United Way funds. Or you can designate a specific charity that you wish to give to. In the past, I've done a combination of both. I have given to various charities, including our own Tarrant County Law Enforcement Memorial, as well as Children Health. But then I've also given an amount to the United Way and let them distribute it to wherever they saw fit. The second thing I want to be sure you're aware of is that if you do choose to give money to a specific charity, that the United Way doesn't charge any administrative fee for transferring that money to that particular charity. So, for example, as I mentioned, I've given in the past to the Tarrant County Law Enforcement Memorial. And so if I should choose to give $500 or really whatever the amount is, the full amount is what goes to that particular charity. So now let's talk about how you get started. As I mentioned earlier, the first thing you can do is click on the link below. That will take you directly to the United Way online portal. The second way that you can get into the program is to go to the web page, go to the bottom right-hand side and click on Employee Portal. That will take you to another page and go down and you'll see the loop. And you'll click on that Employee Intranet. And then that will take you to your third page and go over to the right-hand side and move down that side and you will see the United Way logo. And when you click on that, then it will take you into the United Way portal, at which point in time you will begin that process. Again, I want to thank you for your time and thank you for your contribution. I've found that the Tarrant County employees are some of the most generous people, not only in our county, but on earth. And again, I want to thank you for your contribution and for your generosity. Have a great day.
Nicely done.
All right, let's get after it. Tell Fort Worth we're going to whoop them again. And I will suspect that I will receive and file the United Way campaign kickoff.
Second.
Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. And, you know, it could be that we could maybe still have a challenge where if others would like to shave their head, we could do that. You know, maybe Commissioner Allen?
I wholeheartedly support United Way, but I'm not shaving my head.
We're all real proud of you, Judge.
And as I said, you're standing well behind me is what you're saying.
We're right there.
You're behind me, but you're not within touching distance of being behind me. All right. Well, again, I'm excited about kicking it off this year, and I just, we'll see if you can get the hair off my head. We'll just see. Okay, court members, you have before. I see you scratching up there, Randy. You're kind of used to that. We'll see. Maybe you'll be the one that'll be able to take some of the. After last week, I'm sure you probably will. Court members, you have before you the consent agenda.
Move for approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. We have a couple of public hearings today. This would be going down this ward. And I do think we have a person who wants to speak on the public hearing. So you might begin to make your way around to the courtroom. Go ahead.
Okay. We're requesting a public hearing today for amendment number 1 that will allow for the 3-year plan from 20 to 24 to add additional goals and projects for the expenditure of additional CARES funds. This includes $2,734,655 under the Emergency Solutions Grant and $3,939,000 under the Community Development Block Grant. We had the second public hearing will allocate those funds, so I'll step back now and receive input.
I will open the public hearing on. Can I do them both at the same time? Amendment 1 and 2.
Okay, then I will open the public hearing on, to consider amendment number 1 on the consolidated plan. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to this matter? It was my understanding that there was somebody back in 504C that wished to do that. Jody, if you're back there, would you please come forward? She decided she didn't want to speak. Okay. Then, there being nobody here to speak to this item, I will declare the public hearing closed.
The second amendment, we are requesting Commissioners Court add additional funds under the HUD CARES program. These include allocations of homeless prevention, $150,000, emergency shelters, $2 million, street outreach, $211,190, rapid rehousing, $100,000, and administration, $465,000. We are working closely with the Homeless Coalition and blending some of our funds with state funds right now. So we will probably come back again when we have blended those. They haven't received their allocation yet, but we want to make sure that we're working with our jurisdictions and with the Homeless Coalition for the pandemic. So the $2 million, we are looking at working with the shelters on doing ventilation systems to make sure that to prevent the spread of COVID. But we'll come back in the future too, once we have cleared those out and have plans directly for those projects. We'll come back to y'all.
I will open the public hearing at this time and ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak to this matter. There appearing to be none, then I will close the public hearing. Do we need to take action on either one of these?
No, sir.
Okay.
So, thank y'all very much.
Thank you. Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now we will go to the briefing agenda, and I will ask Mr. Sneyd to come forward and make his presentation.
Good morning, Your Honor, and members of the court. We'll revisit the COVID-19 briefing again this morning. Situational awareness, cases continue to rise across the globe, 37.7 million cases, 1.07 million deaths. Again, the big story worldwide is actually India now surpassing 7 million cases. So they're closing in on the U.S. numbers. Unfortunately, we're still number 1 in the world. U.S. cases are 7.8 million with 214,000 deaths. Texas cases, 795,000 with the 16,500 deaths. 7.5 million tests conducted total. I believe 7 million of those are the viral molecular tests. Tarrant County situation, we have 56,000 cases. I believe this morning we added about 500. 694 deaths and over 47,000 recoveries. On the right-hand graphic there, Tarrant County is shown to have 463,000 tests conducted as per DSHS data. Unfortunately, we're still hanging around at number 4. We've lost our spot seemingly to Bexar County, and we'll keep working on trying to get back to number 3, more in line with our size, population size in the state. U.S. graph here, definitely a change in trend. We're ticking up for several weeks, and it's not as sharp uprise as we saw back in June and July, but definitely we're in a new wave up. And we're starting off a higher base, so my suspicion is that we're going to probably end up at a higher peak in the fall. Texas is somewhat stabilizing overall. In the last 14 days, there's a decline in cases as the state of Texas. Now, there are pockets of activity. Certainly, Tarrant County is one of them where the numbers are going the other way. But as a state, the total counts are declining for the last 14 days. Here's the situation. If you look at the moving average, it's somewhat flat for over the 2 weeks. I mean, the last week is going up, but overall, we're at the same level. So that chart, kind of tells you that, like what we saw in Tarrant County, we hit a base and then we turned around. I'm suspicious that this is what's going to happen with Texas as well. We hit a base, and I don't think we're going any lower at this point. Here's the positivity rate. That shows the same picture. It sort of hit a bottom, and it's been trending up slightly. They're at 6.82%, and it's a slow uptrend, very different than what we saw in May and June, where there was a sharp increase, but this time around it's a little bit slower. School situation, certainly, not improving. Total cases in Texas schools are 12,847. That's an increase of 2,990 from the previous week, which is about a 30% increase. And Tarrant County situation, about the same. We have 1,148 cases in Tarrant County schools, 33% increase from the week before. We've identified 6,741 contacts in the school setting. And I got to tell you, I have to thank our school partners. They're doing a tremendous job helping us out with this contact tracing effort. Overall assessment, it's been about 4 weeks since our dashboard turned red at the first indicator, COVID-like illness, getting above a certain percentage and going into an uptrend. And we had asked people to be cautious, to look at what the data is telling us, and now 4 weeks in, almost all the indicators are turning red. So the data is becoming adverse for in-person learning. What that means is schools should be preparing and considering a switch to virtual learning. Again, it's not binding in any means, but it is what the data is showing us, so that's our public health guidance, that if they have a situation like an outbreak happening at a school, they should certainly switch to in-person or in a virtual learning. And if at all possible, and I realize there's a lot of regulations around that, but if at all possible, the data is showing it's better to do virtual learning now versus waiting for an outbreak to occur. Our Tarrant County data, this kind of breaks it down. The school dashboard sort of is a composite picture. These are more indicator by indicator why this is happening. As you can see, our hospitalizations are starting to accelerate upwards. We hit that flat base 3 or 4 weeks ago, and we've been trending up since. We're at about 11% of the occupied bed capacity. In my view, that is a better indicator because it tells you the burden of illness within the hospital setting, that 11% of the beds that are occupied by one single illness, which is never good news for healthcare. I realize there's a order out there, I think GA32, that talks about a different denominator, but that line is the blue line. It's comparing it to total available bed capacity within our hospitals. We're at 8% of that. Case trend, we've been trending up for the last several weeks. Again, the picture is very similar in a lot of those indicators. We hit a plateau when we were declining, and then we started to trend back up. If you take out the last bar, which is the most recent data because it's still to be filled in, the previous 3 bars, clearly are an uptick, and then the 4th one was sort of the low. In 2 of those, at least, you're seeing case counts above 2,000 per week, and that puts us in the red zone. On the positivity rate chart, we're at about 11% again, and we've been bouncing around between 9 and 11. I think we hit 12% last week and came back down a little bit. Overall, again, we're in the red zone based on that because that's above 10%. COVID-like illness, a more clear picture, definitely trending up since August 31st. There's really not been much of a decline or a break there. A very clear uptrend emerging on the COVID-like illness. So all in all indicators are pointing that there is increased disease activity in our community. People need to take more precautions. So the question is, how do you bend the curve? Well, first things first, we're in the beginning of the flu season. And as there's a media term out there called twindemic. We certainly don't want to deal with 2 viruses. And so it's a quick reminder that get your flu shot. Let's get flu taken care of, and then continue to deal with COVID. And then, of course, continue to wear your masks everywhere, stay home as much as possible, and stay 6 feet away from others, because, again, those are the only tools that we have available at this point in the absence of any, easy-to-give antivirals at home or any vaccine to take. And the biggest one here is avoid large group gatherings. There's a lot of activity in our community that is attracting large group gatherings, and those tend to spread illness because when you put a lot of people together, invariably somebody has some symptoms. It's hard to tell what they have because it's allergy season, it's flu season. People can't diagnose themselves. So it does tend to spread. And in the end, follow public health guidance. And that's all I have, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Jenny, in Tarrant County, our infection rate is growing.
Yes, sir.
Our positivity rate is growing.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Our hospital bed census is growing.
Yes, sir.
None of these indicators are declining.
No, sir. We're in a true uptrend with all the indicators pointing up.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Vinny.
Okay, members of the court, we can now go to the county administrator section, and we'll go to item number 1 first. Just a quick update on gubernatorial orders that we received. On October 7th, Governor Abbott issued a new executive order. This is GA 32, and it deals with the allowing of bars to open at 50% capacity starting October 14th. One of the guidance pieces was that he's encouraging the bars to close at 11 p.m. But this would only be effective in those regions that had hospital occupancies that were 15% or less than 15% of total occupancy would be COVID occupied. So just wanted to make you aware of that. Judge, do you have any comments on this? Or
See, you can still see me smiling behind me.
Yes, sir, I can.
Yes, what the governor basically said is that you could open them back, but it was a decision of the county judge, and it wasn't actually done by an order. It was done by notifying TABC that the county was going to be, that the county judge was going to allow the bars to reopen, and he issued that order on Wednesday. And I began talking with folks and continued talking with folks all the way up till about 3:30 yesterday when I announced that we were going to go ahead and reopen the bars. The folks that I talked with through that process were the hospitals, cities and mayors, some bar owners, as well as other businesses. I talked with my partners here on the court. And I guess what I would simply say is from the very beginning until now, and will continue throughout the process for however long this goes on, was a focus on the hospitals and the ability to keep the hospitals open. And after communicating with the hospital CEOs both last Friday as well as yesterday afternoon, they felt, and I listened, and they felt like that they were in good shape, that yes, there had been some uptick, but that they still felt very comfortable in their abilities to keep the hospitals open in Tarrant County. Now, the ratio that was talked about, the 15% that was mentioned a moment ago, is for the region, the trauma region. I'm going to focus more, as I look at this, on Tarrant County. And as I notified TABC that we were going to allow the bars to open, I can just as easily today or tomorrow or any day from here on out basically notify TABC that we are going to close the bars. Last evening, about 5:30, I met with about somewhere between 35 and 40 of the local bar owners and explained to them the decision and how I got to the decision, and the fact that while in the past, as we've looked at enforcement, the goal has been not to be out there issuing citations all over the place, but to encourage folks and warn folks that if they continue to disregard the orders, that we might issue a citation. When it came to this part of the deal, I talked again with the cities and with the mayors and said that in order for me to do this, we were going to have to become much stronger on the enforcement side. Now, there's two sets of enforcements. We currently have mask policies. That I have a mask policy that pertains to businesses. The governor has a mask policy that pertains to individuals. And I have the assurances of several of the cities, the mayors, and the police that they're going to go out and take a much stronger position in enforcing those mask orders, and those can be citations if folks choose not to do as we have asked. Then the fire, the police, and the ordinance folks can issue citations, and those citations will range anywhere from $250 up to $1,000 per occurrence. If they choose not to follow, the TABC can also come in, and if they're not following those orders, they can suspend their liquor license. Obviously, that's much more effective, because if they suspend their liquor license, that's where they make most of their dollars, and so they're not going to be very anxious about having that happen. And so I just explained to the individuals that I felt like that many of the folks who we were opening up and who had remained closed did not try to find the loophole to get through that and continue to operate as a restaurant. And so I felt like to not open it was to penalize those who were trying to follow the orders in most instances, and not the folks who had found the loopholes and were opened up and potentially violating the orders. I had a lot of folks refer me to the WFAA video this past weekend of the Varsity Tavern, and what appeared to be a very blatant disregard for the orders. That owner was at the meeting that I had, and I specifically indicated to him that if I had the authority, I'd pull his license yesterday, and will continue to try to pull it today and tomorrow and the next day if they choose to continue to disregard the orders. He wasn't happy about that, but I mean it that way, and I said it to all of them. We're going to try to open it up, but at the same time, we're not going to let everybody just blatantly disregard the orders. So that's kind of where we are right now. I want to get businesses back open. I want to be sure and be careful about public health. My focus has and will remain the hospitals staying open. And in every decision I make, have made before, and will make maybe in the future, it'll always be done after talking with other folks who are in the community. My partners on the court, the cities, public health, the businesses, and other folks. And then again, I want to thank the DA's office, because they've been very helpful in making sure that we understand exactly what the governor's orders say. And it's the orders that he writes, not the other things that you may hear or read. And so that's the thing that we have to stay focused on. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions that anybody might have here, and if y'all have got any questions. But it wasn't an easy decision, but it was one that I think helps us to get the businesses back open and hopefully get our economy back going. And I will say this, as we talk about other things, I hope that if we do another round of economic grants, or that as we do them, that we include the bars in that. We excluded them this first time. There are a number of, we excluded them the first time. I was told that the bars were not eligible for application. If they were, then I misspoke, and we'll be more than glad. But it was my understanding that the bars were excluded out of the first round. You're saying no?
I don't believe they were, Your Honor. I think the only group that was excluded were the franchise.
No, I think the bars
The
were.
bars were excluded.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll check on that.
But I'm just saying, if they were or weren't, it doesn't make any difference. The first round is passed,
Yeah, the second round, we're opening it up to everybody.
and I hope that we open that up to everyone from that standpoint. Any questions?
Yeah, Judge, I certainly appreciate that. It's been a difficult decision for you to make regarding this action. I remain concerned about the uptick in trends that we're seeing in our county, and I know that it's not any one single thing that's going to turn things around or help us to bend the curve. It's multiple factors. I will say that I understand your concerns about the hospitalization rates. What particular factors within, in talking with the hospital leaders, are they looking at?
I think they're looking at the COVID patients they have in the hospitals, whether they're in general population or in the ICU, and their available beds. And in both of those instances, both on Friday as well as on Monday, because we did see a number of additional cases on Saturday and Sunday during the weekend, they felt like there was not they did not share any concerns about the possibilities of having to shut down the hospitals or have to turn away any emergency care.
And so is this something that you will be discussing with them on a daily basis, or how often? Because if we see these numbers start to climb even more or quickly, when will we call it? When will we say that this is not working?
I am watching we get the numbers on the hospitalization ratio on a daily basis, and so I'm watching that on a daily basis. I think if we continue to see a trend upward in that particular area, then I will talk with them and see what they say. And as I said, in the past we had weekly calls. We had dropped that because we didn't, we weren't in any way, shape, or form concerned. If I see those ratios going up, then I will talk with them. But I mean, we're talking about the major groups, and there's about 5 or 6 people on that call who, for all intents and purposes, represent all of the hospitals in Tarrant County. And I know each one of them very well. If I didn't know them before this started, I know them very well now, and none of them are hesitant about picking up the phone and calling me.
Sure.
And it can be, and again, I told this to the bar owners last night, that this was something that we would continue to watch. But I said, if I see the bars begin to open back up and disregarding the rules as flagrantly as the quote-unquote restaurant did, I said, I have no qualms whatsoever in shutting you down next week. And I think they got that message.
Well, Judge, I hope that they did get that message. I am as anxious to completely open our economy as anybody sitting up here. But my concern is not the hospital capacity. My concern is that the numbers in our community, according to the questions that I just asked Vinny and the answers that he gave, those answers indicate a certain amount of community spread that is beginning to reassert itself in Tarrant County. And my concern is not hospital beds. My concern is being able to keep kids in classrooms with teachers for in-person learning. And if we get into a cycle of widespread community spread of this virus again, then the schools are going to have to shut down. They've started to reopen. In 2 weeks, the Fort Worth ISD will be fully open for in-person instruction, and I want to see those schools be able to continue in-person instruction. And these statistics do not bode well for the ability to continue that. That's my concern. I have, from the beginning of this pandemic, said that the science ought to control our actions, and to me, the science is saying that this is not a time to relax anything.
Thank you.
So, Your Honor, now it's probably the time to go ahead and get audience participation before we go to the remainder of our agenda. You have 3 different types. You have some that just want something read into the record. You have some that we need to call. I believe there's 2 of those. And there's some people in the audience or in 504C that would like to address the court directly.
All right. And I'm going to start off with the in-person. And the first individual I have is Robert Bucher, followed by Sherrod Perry, followed by Doug Hines.
My name is Robert Bucher. Has anybody seen Dr. Copeland? No. We see Vinny, but we don't see Dr. Copeland, which I'm completely against reappointing any of this health authority. We don't see them at all. So we talk about following the mask mandate, following the rules. Right here's a picture, once again, of Sheriff Wayborn along with Mayor Cook. No mask. Fix, no mask. Fix and the sheriff, no mask. I love this. Fix, no mask. I love it. I just love it. It makes me happy. But you want us to follow the rules? Look at this. Again, once again, the sheriff. All these right here is crazy. But you want us to follow the rules. I'm going to read the Texas Article 1, Section 28 says...
Would you mind taking your hat off so I can see your...
Yes, sir. I do not mind. So Texas Article 1, Section 28 says... the only legislature can suspend any laws and statutes. Governor is not the legislation, period. So we're still in violation once again. And also you. The Section B, AD says a judge shall be patient, dignified, and courteous to litigants, jurors, witnesses, lawyers, and others within whom the judge deals with in an official capacity, and shall require similar conduct of lawyers and of staff, court officials, and others subject to the judge's direction and control. A judge shall perform judicial duties without bias or prejudice. Still haven't seen any documents on the 43 people you say you make your decisions on. This makes no sense. Just makes no sense to keep them going, even though the Constitution is over everything. But we're going to keep, putting that to the side because that don't matter at all. We're not worried about that. We'd rather be tyrants, and that's all we'd rather be. A judge shall comply with the law and should act at all times in a manner that promotes public confidence and integrity and impartial to the judiciary, and that's in the Texas Judicial. A judge shall not allow any relationship to influence judicial conduct or judgment. A judge shall not lend the prestige of judicial official to advance the private interests of the judge or others, nor shall a judge convey the permit of others to convey the impression that they are in a special position to influence the judge. A judge shall not testify voluntarily as a character witness. A judge shall not knowingly hold membership in any organization that practices discrepancy prohibited by law. The judicial duties of a judge takes precedence over all the judge's other activities. The judicial duties include all of the duties of the judge officials prescribed by law, and the performance of his duties are the following apply, which I've already read those. I mean, the Constitution is pretty much what the Constitution is. And the fact that we're going to keep putting that to the side because we're listening to a guy that has no idea what they're doing whatsoever. And I don't know if y'all seen the 6,000 scientists that signed a petition against a lockdown. Y'all might want to look at that. Y'all should check that out. Y'all really should. Instead of saying, oh, we should lock it down, we should go straight there. You ought to do that. It's a damn shame. It's our time.
Mr. Bucher, I did try to call you back, and we'll be glad to sit down and talk with you. Sherrod Perry, followed by Doug Hines, followed by Jody.
Good morning. All right. So I have some handouts because I'm going to go over some of the statistics that Tasia went over with you. And I said, do you need? Okay. So just give 3 copies. 4 copies. All right.
Yeah, go ahead and hold the time. Well, why don't you hold the time until you pass that out, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So again, like I said, a few minutes ago, Tanasia went over some of the data, and I did as well yesterday, and I wanted to kind of offer sort of a different interpretation of what we're seeing. Like I said, on the first, the first chart are the cases, and as we're hearing, the cases are going up, right? And again, I've stressed that to me, cases is really not a meaningless statistic. Meaningless, actually, because again, if you test more people, you'll get more cases. But regardless, and not only that, the test itself, I think it's been pointed out by several people that the test itself, the way it's designed, this PCR test is designed, it can be tweaked. You can basically, the way the test works, it doubles. It basically takes the sample you put in and it doubles the material in it. And if you double the material over and over and over again, obviously, if you double it 30 times, you end up with basically, you turn one molecule into basically 1 billion. If you double it 40 times, that one molecule becomes 1 trillion. And what does that mean? That means that the test can be, if you turn up the number of times you double, you can turn a negative into a positive because more of that material shows up in the sample. Anyway, the test can be tweaked. But let's go to the second page, because one thing I want to point out is on the second page is that you see a lot of blue bars starting from July, and again you see before July you see a lot of flat bars, right? But once July and after, you see all these tall bars because again the chart we're looking at now is basically testing. These are tests. The testing ramped up significantly starting in mid-July and still continues to this point. So a whole lot more testing started in mid-July, and we're doing, and it continues. So again, more tests means more cases. So again, really to me, as a statistics and math, as a statistics and math, major, I'm looking at rates. And again, the positivity rate is what keeps coming up as well. And again, if you go to the third page of this, as we've been saying, the positivity rate, again, that statistic matters to me. And right now, again, it's been hovering around 10% for months now. So again, the question is, what positivity rate would you be happy with to reopen fully and to lift mandates? Because I'm not hearing that number. I feel like this number is very arbitrary. That we're saying 10% positivity, just because it's a round number or whatever. But if you go to the chart, I really want to make sure I get to the last chart, because the last chart are the deaths. Another statistic that we must consider are really the deaths. We're talking about all these statistics, and really, again, if you look at deaths, if you look at the end of that chart, you see very low bars. the number of deaths in Tarrant County are significantly lower, and they are people who are much, much older, in their 70s and 80s, people who had underlying conditions. So again, a targeted approach is what we've been preaching for months now, a targeted approach where we can protect those who are more susceptible to this illness, and allow the rest of us who are much less accessible to basically go about our lives without masks and without mandates.
And, okay, Mr. Perry, I
right,
appreciate that. And again, as you heard me say earlier this morning, my focus in most of the decisions I make are decisions that are related to how the hospital's doing. Mm-hmm. And the mask mandate is something that I have put in place because I believe, after talking with individuals whose opinions I respect, say that that's what I'm concerned about, and that they feel that that's a good concern. A lot of what you're talking about as far as reopening, that's the governor, that's not me. Mm-hmm. And so, all I can say is that it is the hospital and the hospitals who I'm most focused on.
Right.
So,
right. Well, can I ask you, with the mask, have there been any adverse health effects that have been discussed with you as far as outside of
when I've
us
talked
coming
with
in?
medical folks, when I've talked with the doctors in this area, the presidents of the medical societies, the hospitals, not a single one of them has expressed concern about health issues related to the wearing of the masks. Not a single one.
Not a single one. No
not
adverse effects whatsoever.
One.
Wow. Interesting. Okay.
So, thank you very much for your comment.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Doug Hines, followed by Jody, followed by Janet Jackson. Good morning.
Good morning. Judge Whitley, Commission, thanks for having us back again today. Give us our comments. I want to talk about, in my opinion, what we need and what we don't need. What we don't need is a wall of protection in this county, in this state, in this country against COVID. What we need is a wall of protection against Satan and all his evil that he has caused in the name of COVID. Because we will not abide by, and we do not need to give up our constitutional freedoms in the name of safety. That shouldn't be done. Motivation matters. I want to talk about 3 questions, and I want you guys to think about this. I want the commission, all 5 of you people, I want you to think about motivation in your heart when I pose 3 questions to you. Because you can do good things with a bad motive or bad things with a good motive, and I'll take the second anytime. But let's talk about that. Number 1, why does this commission continue to support a mask mandate, which its own governor says it's an infringement on the constitutional freedoms provided in Texas? Why do we do that? Think about, why do we do that? Just think about it. That's all. What's the motivation for continuing to do so? Number two, is such continued support for the restrictions, now you've opened up a little bit, the restrictions, the mask mandate, etc., worth the negative impacts on this county, on this state, but let's talk about the county because we're in the county court, on depression, suicides, loss of livelihood, loss of business, loss of personal freedom, and the whole psyche damage to this county from the imposition of these mask mandates and other restrictions. But the most important question I want to ask this court is this. What is it? What is it in your hearts? What is it that will get you to take your neck off the freedoms of this Tarrant County people and get this COVID restrictions lifted? What is going to do that? Where in your hearts, when are you going to hit that number, that letter, that idea in your heart that says, we need to stop this? Is it 0 deaths? Is it 0 cases? What is it? When are we going to stop? When are we going to stop? A vaccine. Is that it? Is that the number? Is that the magic date? Or, right now, are we at a situation where a nice flat line on the hospitalizations of, let's say 8% occupied, 11% occupied, 8% overall, 90% of the hospital beds are for something else?
1 minute.
How about attainment of a very low COVID infection rate? You got 10% or below people that are being tested are not coming up. 90% are coming up negative. Those that are inclined to go get tested are coming up negative. So I think we're already at those things. Those measures are here now. I say let's go with freedom. Let's get rid of the restrictions, and let's set the people of Tarrant County free. Thank you.
You do understand that the governor's mask order is still in place?
I do, and I'm asking this court to take the action it can do to free Tarrant County and
Which
release.
we can't do because the governor's order is in place.
You can do so. My understanding is you can do so with respect to the business mask order here in Tarrant County.
Well, the governor's order is in place. Mine just basically helps that, and I'm not going to pull the mask order. But if I pull the mask order, it doesn't mean everybody's going to still be required to wear a mask.
Not in businesses.
Yes, sir, they are.
But there'll be no fines in businesses.
Well, we're not going. Well, I'm going to keep that mask order in place.
And I'm asking you to release it.
Well, thank you for your ask.
I'll be asking next week again.
I'll see you here next week.
Thank you.
Jody, followed by Janet Jackson. Is Janet not back there? Oh, I'm sorry, Jody, go ahead.
Before I begin, I have a question for you. On the proclamations that you sign regarding domestic violence, and I'm coming here with purple today because of domestic violence, I want to know how you choose who you're going to sign that for. Because the one that you just signed, it's ironic that the person you signed that for actually was instrumental in allowing my ex-spouse to kidnap my children. She knew it was intimate partner violence. She knew it was economic and that I'd be in court spending $125,000 trying to see my children that were put on an airplane in the middle of the night. She knew that the PTA lady from Birdville High School drove my babies to the airport in the middle of the night. She knows what intimate partner violence is. Why didn't you sign a proclamation that I gave you? Because I am a victim of domestic violence and the extenuation of domestic violence, which is DV by proxy, which is parental alienation. So I want to know how you pick and choose when she obviously doesn't incarcerate people that are causing this. She caused me extreme pain. That's why I don't wear a mask today. It's because of the intimate partner violence. Because my children were kidnapped by an abuser. Not one, not two, but 4. 2 in Iowa, so I moved here thinking I was moving to a conservative place that, felt like mothers mattered. Now I know I'm in China, but again, how do you choose which one you're going to do? I've had mayors that have signed that. Is it because I'm exposing corruption? Why? I've had several mayors that have signed this from different states all across the nation. Why would you sign one from someone that doesn't arrest these people?
We will just have to agree to disagree on this particular situation. Your time is going to begin now for
Unbelievable.
Your request.
Okay, I gave GK something. I want you to see the symptoms. Here's the symptoms of COVID. Look at that list. Here's the symptoms of EMF exposure. Hopefully you can see that. I want you to take a good look at that, because the people that are getting these flu vaccines or these upcoming forced COVID vaccines, it's going to react to these 5G towers. After speaking here several times, it's become clear to me that nobody's listening. Nobody. So I went in and I'm looking at the bios, and I want to just point them out. Devin Allen, I'll start with her because she's a woman. Let's go ahead and start there. She's the youngest child of incarcerated parents and experienced homelessness at a young age. She worked with nonprofit organizations to end homelessness. I would think she would be very concerned about collateral damage of shutdowns, job losses that cause friction in homes and lead to alcoholism, drug addiction, abuse, and incarceration, and possibly even abductions. Roy Brooks championed an initiative showing how counties play critical roles in breaking multi-generational cycles of poverty. Also, he knows about the ACE study, I assume, because it says he knows about adverse childhood experiences and trauma. I don't think he does. There's trauma in these homes. It has not gone down. It has gone up because of these unlawful orders. I promise you. Commissioner Johnson apparently has a passion for 4-H FFA clubs of Tarrant County. I wonder if he's bothered by the stock show just recently being canceled, because that causes tremendous loss financially for children and their parents. And also, they don't get to gather at these places.
1 minute.
Gary Fickus, Empowering Seniors. I looked that up. Wondering why he hasn't voiced his opinion about the new 5G towers that just went up right off William D. Tate. When William D. Tate himself said we don't have 5G towers. Why did they just go up last week? That causes Alzheimer's, cardiac palpitations, and depression, just to name a few, and oxygen issues. So these people that are in these hospitals might not be because of this fake COVID. It might just be about EMF and radiation, because that's what this is all about. Glenn Whitley, I got nothing to say other than the sustainable communities you talk about in youth and children issues. You're obviously not paying attention, unless sustainable means what it does in Black's Law Dictionary, which means to suffer great loss. This is not about public health, but about willful and intentional behavioral and social engineering for a socialist agenda.
Thank you, Jody. Janet Jackson. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Janet Jackson, and although I've not been here in a few weeks, I still have been paying attention and watching at what goes on. And I want to let y'all know I appreciate the chiropractor Brian Hintz that spoke out, because several of you say you're for the victims. That's not what I see. That's not what my experiences is either. Because if you're for the victim, let me just say, I'm a victim. As a victim of domestic abuse, I would like each of you to know that part of wearing a mask is to break down, manipulate, degrade the person in order for them to be taken advantage of and be put in an abusive situation. So therefore, I can't wear the mask, being a victim of sexual abuse and raped from the time I was 4 years old until I was 10. I do not in any way appreciate the stance or the lack of courage any of you have taken to protect abuse victims. It is really a disgrace. But still, I'm going to stand on this because God does work amazing things. God calls us to faith in Him, which calls us to walking out of the safe zone. Y'all want to make this a safe zone. There's not a safe zone in this world. Life is not safe. It cannot be safe. It will not be safe. I don't care what you try to implement. It is not going to be safe. You can mask your face and hide all day long. That will not protect you. That mask is a lie from the pit of hell. If you knew anything about the virus, you would know that the virus is 0.125 microns. That mask doesn't do a hill of beans of protection. The CDC even released information out back in July, I think it was just published on their site yesterday, that people got coronavirus wearing the mask more than people that did not. Risk is a part of life and a big part of faith. Will you be like Peter? What about Esther? Will you be like John the Baptist? To do just what I'm saying is what you can't do, is play it safe. Life is not safe. If you want to seize tomorrow and accomplish the dreams that God places in your heart, you have to be willing to get out of the boat. You have to be willing to get off the mask, off the people. You are not inspiring courage. That is what a leader should do. A leader should inspire courage. A leader should inspire hope. We need hope here in Tarrant County. Where's the hope?
Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
We are all looking to you. You were elected to inspire that. But instead, you rain down tyranny on the people of Tarrant County. It's a crying shame.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. I have three people who wish to make comments but do not wish to address the court. The first is Judith Shelton.
I have an audience participation for Nancy Groves.
Okay, just a second. Okay, you're right. I see. I had her down as someone to just call. So, Nancy Groves, then, if she's in the office. Nancy, sorry, apologize for that.
Thank you.
You bet.
I've lived in Tarrant County since 1985. I've been working as a registered nurse in the Metroplex since 1985. Why do I give that information about me? I'm hoping that you can look at the mask mandate through the eyes of a nurse professional. To even get admitted to the College of Nursing, I was required to take chemistry, microbiology, physiology, anatomy, nutrition. The pre-nursing science courses provide the background necessary to understand the precautions used in various situations in caring for our patients. The precautions are to protect ourselves as nurses and our patients. Proper donning of personal protective equipment, or PPE as we call it, is required in a skills lab prior to working with real live patients. As nursing students, we are observed by an instructor or our peers in the clinical environment to ensure proper technique and choice of correct PPE for the particular infection type. As a hospital staff worker, we have a mandatory checkoff annually on properly donning PPE and the N95 mask, which is a requirement for continued employment. When my employer, one of the large hospitals in this Metroplex, mandated masks at the end of March, it seemed reasonable because we didn't know a lot about the COVID-19 virus. Now, fast forward 6 months ahead. We have a lot of information now. The science essentially has not changed. The use of PPE has not changed. The SARS-CoV-2 virus is no different now than it was before. This is not a deadly virus. It is not going to kill millions. It is spread by aerosol like many other respiratory and coronaviruses that already exist. The WHO estimates the global IFR, or infection fatality rate, is 0.14%, which is no different than the seasonal flu. It sickens me to observe and have to participate in this mask mania that was started by government overreach. When it was announced that any mask is acceptable to wear in public, I knew that it had nothing to do with public safety. The public has not been properly trained to use PPE for the use of infectious disease. Any mask will not do. Manufactured disposable medical masks were meant to be used one time and thrown away in proper receptacles. Medical masks are meant to be used in a sterile and clean environment and thrown away after single use. The outside of a mask is not to be touched. When a mask gets wet, it is no longer effective. A study completed in April of 2015 on the NIH website shows that specifically cloth masks can actually cause more influenza-like illnesses. The cause is moisture retention, reuse of cloth masks, and poor filtration.
Thank you, Ms. Groves. We appreciate your comments.
Yes, please take those to heart.
Now, we have 3 comments. Mr. Manius, would you read those as I call them off? First is Judith Shelton. Is somebody going to hit the 3-minute mark? So I think most of these are going to be less than 3 minutes.
Yeah. So, members of the court, this is from Judith Shelton, and it reads as follows. What is the court's position on the concern of citizens that the mask mandate has the potential to cause other health issues related to long-term use? The medical industry requires professional input regarding the types of masks and working conditions required to wear those masks for a prolonged period of time. Why should the public not be concerned with the mandate backed up by little to no research on the long-term effects? What are the chances that people could develop hypoxia, high blood pressure, or lung bacteria related to prolonged mask usage? Why is this not a concern?
Okay, next is Francisco Latimer.
This is Mr. Latimer's comments. I would like to speak on behalf of my 6-year-old sister and others like her with special needs. The changes in school are difficult for kids, and more so for kids that need their structure and routine to be consistent. Forcing kids to wear masks, limiting interaction with peers, limiting access to programs outside the class, such as PE, music, library, etc., and installing barriers between them is a huge detriment to the growth and development of their mind, behavior, and emotions. Schools should be fully returned to normal so that we are not causing permanent damage to our entire generation.
Next is Pamela Gunn.
This is Ms. Gunn's comments. President Roosevelt said that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, a nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror with paralysis needed effects. The WHO now says shutdowns will only hurt the people and should not be used. Our president told us to get back to work and not to let the virus dominate our lives. China has recently discovered school children should not wear masks because it is killing them. If you want to exercise power while showing your faith and strength, stand against the draconian mandates of our governor and open Tarrant County with no more masks.
Thank you. Now, there are a few people that, I guess 2 people who wish to be called, and I will.
Your Honor, do you have one from Mr. Shelton, James Shelton?
Yes. He talks that his is a public comment, so it would not be attributable to the.
I understand. I apologize, Your Honor.
So I'm going to call. The first call is going to be to Donna Rex.
Please leave your message for Donna Rex.
Donna, this is Judge Whitley. I was attempting to reach you for audience participation. I will try to call you back in just a minute, and Otherwise, we will, I'm sorry, but not be able to connect up this weekend, or this day. Next is Rick Martin. Yes, Mr. Martin, this is Judge Whitley, and you had put in an audience participation form. We're on that point in the agenda, and so I would like to give you 3 minutes to make whatever comments you wish to make.
Yes, sir. We appreciate that. This is Rick Martin from the state of Texas with the Constitutional Law Group. We've been traveling across the country, waking up governors to the unlawful acts due to COVID-19. No mandate, no executive order or emergency powers can supersede the Constitution. And we are holding those public servants accountable for following these false edicts that have no basis in law. And we're here to let the people know that the mask mandates and the social distancing have no basis in law, and any edict that is not based in law and does not stand up with the constitutional sniff test is no law, has no force of law, and can be ignored. The closing of businesses without due process is an absolute violation of public servants' oath of office that goes for health inspectors, the liquor board, and so forth. We at the Constitutional Law Group are now holding all public servants accountable to their oath of office and demanding that they back down and that we, the people, start waking up, reading the Constitution, and educating ourselves on what law is and what law is not. For a law to become law, it has to go through legislation and be voted on. And even if an unlawful law that's repugnant to the Constitution, we're protected under a Supreme Court ruling, Marbury versus Madison, 1803, where Chief Justice John J. Marshall ruled that any law repugnant to the Constitution is no law, has no force of law, and can be ignored. And I hold back my time for anyone that has any questions.
Don't believe we have any, Mr. Martin. Thank you for your comments.
You're quite welcome. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to try Donna one more time.
Please leave your message for Donna Rex.
I'm sorry, Donna. I've tried twice now and could not reach you. Okay, now I have, well, these are other items on the agenda. So, Mr. Manius, with that, we'll proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. We could go to item number 2 under the administrator section. At this point, we're going to ask Guidehouse if you'll start your presentation. Rachel, are you going to do the presentation this morning?
Yes, I am. Good morning, GK.
Good morning.
Good morning, Judge and Commissioners. As GK mentioned, this is Rachel, and I'll be presenting our deck today. If we can advance to the project status slide, we'll get started. So we'll begin with the week of October 5th to the 9th. We continued our ongoing communication with stakeholders, continued to monitor grant opportunities that would be a good match for Tarrant County, continued to monitor new Treasury guidance, continued to review county COVID-19 expenditures to support the ILA distribution program and the NGO assistance program. We also continued to provide ad hoc eligibility reviews, which this week included some reviews related to the census outreach and rental assistance, and also to support the FEMA project worksheet, which is moving forward. And this week, the county is in conversations with FEMA to move forward to advance its first project worksheet. So Guidehouse is providing support on that, and we'll be taking on more responsibility in the coming weeks for the future project worksheet. Moving on to our key activities on the right there. Last week, we provided the county with research on internet connectivity and digital education activities that are eligible for CRF. We also revised the county's payroll guidance that it's going to use for municipalities that are in county CRF funds. We drafted the presentation for last week's municipality office hours. And then we worked with the county to adapt the county's payroll guidance that it's using for these municipalities to also be used for county departments internally. So looking at the county's payroll expenses that are eligible for CRF. And so the first step of that is the county has that we develop a survey that would help the county estimate its eligible CRF payroll expenses. And this is the first step in estimating what those costs are and then determining what we're going to allocate to CRF. We also updated the municipality Q&A from the office hours last week and drafted the newsletter for this week. This week, we're on track to standardize the county's documentation for its review of applications for the NGO assistance program. And this will just make sure that in the future, it'll be easy to recall why certain decisions were made, and this will just help with any documentation and retention. We're also assisting with the county's response to FEMA and the questions they had on the first project worksheet. So moving on to the week of October 12th to the 16th, just do a quick overview of these. In the upcoming week, the Guidehouse team will continue to move forward with a number of ongoing tasks with an emphasis on providing support to the FEMA project worksheet, ILA distribution program, and the NGO assistance program. Our areas for discussion today will be the pillars of focus and the county spend update. Are there any questions on this slide before we move on?
Yes, Rachel, I do have a question on your activities from last week. I guess the research on internet connectivity and digital education. Will you elaborate on that?
Sure. So the county has been interested in, well, beginning from when the TEA Operation Connectivity Program was announced, and that was I think, a while back. This has been an issue that the county has been researching and trying to understand how to best fit this in with its existing CRF priorities and make sure that all of the residents have access to, especially with a focus on school-age children, have access to the internet in a way that will help them with their learning and that will be required for them to participate in that. And so, and as you know, Commissioner Allen, because you brought us, or you have raised some other opportunities in this area, there are a lot of different ways to go about this. And so what we put together was just an overview of some of the different approaches that are available to the county or potentially available to the county. And we're just in discussion about what some of those, what the feasibility of some of those might be.
Okay, so then in future presentations, we would, I guess, get more in depth in some of the recommendations or ways we can engage, or what's next on that with that activity?
Yeah, absolutely. So the next step would be for us to get, us in the county administrator's office and all the other folks that are part of, the COVID-19 team to keep discussing that. And once we have sort of a sense of which way forward makes the most sense, we would be providing an update on that for the court to consider.
Very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions on this slide before we move on? Okay, so moving on to slide, the pillars of focus. This slide captures some high-level updates from the county CRF programming. There's no new high-level updates, but as I mentioned, the county is actively working on programs for the public with support from Guidehouse. Any questions on this slide before we move on? If not, we can move on to the county spend update grant opportunities. And this is an overview of the county's grants. And last week, the county was awarded and it's right there on the bottom line there, the BJA Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Funding Program Grant. And this is a $4.1 million grant. It's a reimbursement grant, so that means the county will have to extend these funds before receiving the reimbursement from BJA. But this is a grant that, this is not a new grant line item here, but it is, that what's new is that the grant has been awarded. So in previous weeks, this has been shown as an application that was submitted, and the county was hopeful to receive it, and just got confirmation last week that they have received it. And so, as I mentioned, this is a reimbursement grant, and this is a grant for certain kind of payroll expenses, supplies, and services related to criminal justice facilities, I believe. And so as this was an anticipated award, there's no change to the total grant amount, which remains $229 million. And expenditures related to these grants, including Coronavirus Relief Fund at top there, are captured on the next slide. Are there any questions on this slide before we move on?
I'd just like to make one announcement as it relates to that. Just prior to court this morning, Hyder Garcia, our elections administrator, notified us that we did receive an additional grant from the Center for Tech and Civil Life. This is a grant, Commissioner Brooks, you've been asking us to apply for, and we have been awarded $1,678,000. This is for elections purposes and is to provide planning and to strategize for safe and secure elections administration in Tarrant County for 2020. So this will be added to this list. We just received this this morning.
Very good.
Any other questions on this slide before we move on? If not, we can move on to the county spend update expenditures. Here we have an overview of the expenditures. There have not been many changes since our report last week, so keep in mind these expenses were captured on October 7th, and so the county has continued to add expenses after that date. It's just the timing of when we pull the report, put it together, and have it reviewed in time for court. So following up from last week's note on testing, just want to raise that this week we have finalized the testing pillar expenses based on the county's identification of eligible expenses. So going forward, we'll have this number up to date and accurate. And to clarify, when we say expenses here, we are including both encumbered and invoiced items. So the county has expended $100 million and has an additional $23 million encumbered via purchase orders. Any questions on this slide? If not, we can move on to slide 5, which is our final slide, and this brings together the county's revenue and expenses, provides an understanding of what is remaining. Beginning with FEMA PA, as we mentioned in previous weeks, the county has submitted its first project worksheet. It's about $5 million or a little bit more, and then from that, FEMA would pay 75%, and you see that here allocated, under earmarked. And then we estimate that an additional about $8.8 million are eligible expenses that could be submitted to FEMA. And we'll continue to refine that number going forward as we dig into these expenses further and continue to discuss and get feedback from TDM and FEMA about how they're interpreting the current policies. And let's see, so moving on to CRF, the county has spent $86 million from its direct distributions. Separately, we estimate that about $17.9 million is CRF eligible. And also shown here under eligible expenses is the 25% local match required for FEMA. So I hope these lines are all clear here. You should see that FEMA match at $1.4 million, going to that tiny sliver on the bottom left side, and eligible expenses is right below that. Additionally, so the county still has $76 million in budgeted CRF funds, and here we have that under earmarked. And that leaves an estimated $27.8 million to be allocated. So these are funds that have not been allocated to any of the pillars that you saw on the previous slide, and these are yet to be allocated funds. Finally, the county has been awarded about $19 million in additional federal funds, and these are separate from CRF, as well as separate from FEMA, although as noted, FEMA is reimbursement, so no funds have been received as of yet. So of that amount, about $4.3 million has been spent, and the remainder is earmarked because these are restricted grants, as you saw from the previous slide. And as GK mentioned, that grant, they're all pretty restrictive in terms of how they can be used, much more than CRF or FEMA, and so these are considered earmarked expenses. So in total, the county has spent $123 million with about $90 million earmarked. And as I mentioned, there's still $27.8 million remaining, and the remaining here is yet to be allocated. Any questions on this slide?
All right, Rachel, I don't have a question, but just wanted to say thanks for clearing it up so I could see the numbers better.
Okay, great. Yeah, we were playing around with those lines just to make sure that they were clear, because we understand it's a lot of information on one little circle, and so we are also thinking about how else we can try and convey this information to be the most useful to you all. So I'm glad that's making some strides there. Any other questions on this slide? If not, that wraps up our presentation, and we will turn it back over to GK.
Okay, then we'll just give you a very quick rundown on our weekly activities. And this document was sent to you all yesterday. And just very quickly, we're now at the Small Business Assistance Program, where when you include the activities today, we have completed the first round. That totals 2,196 points of distribution that we've made to small businesses, which total about $17.6 million. On the COVID testing, this is a fairly new, this is a new addition to this particular slide. You'll see that we have listed the days and also the different sites. Just one comment on the Fort Worth Tarrant County roving sites. That there's a multitude of those that we participate in with the City of Fort Worth. When you take all of these combined, this past week we tested 7,577 people for the coronavirus. On the rental assistance, and this is one area that we're going to ask you all to give us some additional direction and authority in just a second. We continue to expand the rental assistance program. We've received 1,205 applications. We've currently approved 617 for a distribution of $2.1 million. If it goes further than the initial 3 months, we anticipate that expenditure to be about $4.3 million. In the non-governmental assistance program, I believe that we have one today yet that we'll be talking to you about. We have some other ones. Our total grant awarded so far at this point is $6.77 million. As I said, last week we have completed the online applications and have worked through those, but we are now picking up individual non-governmental organizations that we'll be bringing to you. We have the Asthma 411 that we're going to bring to you today. We're working with MHMR that you actually won't see as an NGO, but it'll be part of our local partnership because MHMR is a governmental entity. And so we'll be bringing that back to you as soon as we're ready to complete all the documentation. So with that, I am going to ask Ms. Camarano to come forward and talk to you a little bit about the rental assistance program. And this is a document that we've been working with the auditor's office, and we also ask Ms. Tidwell if you have any comments on it to make sure that we have great clarity on this so that we can move forward.
GK, I did want to just follow up on a request that I had made for some specific information on the Small Business Assistance Grant. I'd like to see the breakdown of the MWD owned by city. I think especially as we move into this next round, I want to be sure that if there, and I know that we had some great numbers here, but I do want to make sure that as we move forward with the second round, that if we see that there are opportunities for us to do some targeted outreach, I need those numbers in order to help to guide that.
We'll try to get that for you next week, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Kristen.
Last week, the Commissioners Court approved some additional eligibility criteria for the rental assistance Assistance Program in the form of self-attestation. That was upon further clarification specific to HIPAA-related information, so the clients didn't have to divulge that. This week, we have a request to you to approve the expansion of the CARES Act Rental Assistance Program requirements to include, among others, applicants financially impacted because of their decision to remove themselves from the workforce to mitigate exposure to or spread of COVID-19, and to expand the use of certified self-attestation for those additional eligibility criteria. With the approval, additional eligibility would be given to applicants who may not have involuntarily lost income due to the closure of a business or loss of employment, or loss of income due to COVID-19, but again, who have removed themselves from the workplace to care for children, elderly, or out of concerns of exposure to or spread of COVID-19. This consideration is consistent with new CDC recommendations that have come out, and so is coming from a public health perspective. Like GK said, we have worked with the auditor's office on an the updated criteria and the self-attestation and certification language that has also been reviewed by the DA's office.
I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Please show Commissioner Fickus absent for this vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
I've got a question regarding the rental assistance program. How is it possible that we've only received 1,200 applications for assistance?
I am newly involved with this program, so I will turn that over. I don't know if Renee has any questions, or Janelle Holt from the Rental Assistance Program from Community Development is also here.
If you don't have any comments, also just to remind the court that we are not only using the CARES Act as it relates to rental assistance, but we've also received funding from CDBG, from HUD also, so there may be some additional numbers.
So there are more than 1,200 families being assisted.
Well, remember that also that this doesn't include the city of Fort Worth, because they are running their own rental assistance program. And so,
I understand that, but the majority of the population of Tarrant County lives outside of the city of Fort Worth.
Janelle, if you have any comments, we'll get you some more information on that. I do think, though, that the action that the court just took is going to expedite those numbers and increase those numbers.
I can also tell you, as Janelle's walking up, that marketing efforts for this program, additional and new marketing efforts are underway that I think will increase the reach as far as the information goes to both the business side, the landlords, and the tenants. So.
Good morning. Yes, I also agree that the more that this is expanded, the more it's going to make it to where people who previously could not necessarily prove their documentation of need will be able to utilize this rental assistance. There's a lot of people that kind of fall between the cracks because if their business closed and they no longer exist, they can't get letters from their employer. They can't get some of these things that they've needed to be able to work through the process. So with the expansion of this, I think we'll see a lot more people who are applying as word gets out that they're getting through and being able to be assisted.
Thank you.
So Ms. Camarena is also going to do item number 3 on our section.
So this is request for approval of an agreement with Cook Children's Healthcare System for the distribution of asthma equipment as part of the Asthma 411 program that Tarrant County has previously been involved in. The CDC made a recommendation that asthma equipment be changed due to possible spread of coronavirus through nebulizers, and so they've advised that the schools update their equipment, and that's what this funding would go for. Funding in the amount of $37,686.25 is requested as part of the NGO program.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then finally, members of the court, on item number 4, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve a letter of engagement between Tarrant County and Deloitte and Touche to serve as the county's outside auditor for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2020.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Just a note on that particular item, Terry Kyle, who has been the lead for Deloitte and Touche, is retiring, and we are going to be getting a new individual to take his place, and that gentleman's name is Blake Rogers.
Blake served at the Governmental Accounting Standards Board Advisory Committee when I served on that, so I've known Blake for probably 4 or 5 years, and he is, I think, a great young man and one that will do well with us and helping us from that standpoint.
And he looks forward to coming and addressing the court anytime the court has any questions.
Yes, I asked him if Terry had prepped him on the questions that I ask every year, and he said, yes, I've told him just to stand there and take it. So that's where we are. With that, we will move to Human Resources. Ms. Glenn?
Move to file personnel agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file personnel agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Go ahead. It's down here. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Good morning, Rob.
Good morning. So we have 2 more items for your consideration. The second one is an approval of waiver of terminal benefits for the Sheriff's Department. We have a sergeant that left the county service back in August with 400 hours. However, this request is only to cover 152 hours. And through salary savings, this is actually the salary savings for the remainder of the fiscal year 21 will be approximately $26,000, including fringe benefits.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Our second item is for
How
consideration.
about our third item?
Our third item. Thank you. Sorry. Our third item is for you all to consider approval of the annually determined contribution rate for the Texas County and District Retirement System, which we know is TCDRS. So this would be effective January 1st, 2021. There is a basic required rate so that TCDRS on our behalf can invest for current employees' future benefits and pay down any unfunded liabilities. So in 2021, the actual required rate is 13.5%. However, a percentage of 19.5% was included in the FY21 budget. 19.5% is the same rate we approved last year. And as you might know, we have the option of considering offering COLAs to our retirees. There are 2 types of COLAs we can offer. One is a flat rate COLA, or the other one is a consumer priced index COLA. And COLA is funded in contribution rate over 15 years, which will cause the employer's rate to creep up or can require that. The flat rate is based on the retiree's current benefit amount, and all retirees would receive that percentage. The CPI takes into consideration inflation and the benefit in proportion to lost buying power. So not all retirees see the benefit of a CPI. We have a couple of options for you, and just so you know, in recent years, the county has authorized a rate higher so that we can begin to pay down our unfunded liability. As of December 31st, 2019, the county's funding ratio was at 89.3%, and our goal is to be at 90%. So we're creeping up on that slowly. We have 4 options for you to consider today. Option 1 would be that we would elect the 19.5% with no COLA. So that would result in a little over $18 million to go towards our unfunded contributions and for paying for future retirements. Option 2 would be a 50% CPI, and that would again come out of that 19.5%. So the unfunded liability contribution would be $7.8 million, and the cost of the COLA would be $10.8 million. Option 3 is a 1% flat rate, again out of that 19.5%. 9.7 would go to the unfunded liability, and 8.9 would go to the COLA. And finally, option 4 is a 40% CPI, with $16 million going towards the unfunded liability and $2.6 going towards the COLA. Now remember, is if we continue to give COLAs, we're kind of dinged as a COLA employer, and that can impact some of our financials going forward. I know y'all are well aware of that. I'm happy to try to answer any questions you might have, or so I'm going to seek approval of one of these options now.
And what did we do last year?
Last year, I believe we gave, I wrote this down somewhere. Last year we did the 1% flat rate. I think that's correct. Yes, thank you. As I hear voices from
behind. So I would probably suggest that we go ahead and do what we did last year, and that's the 1% flat.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Vinny. Come on back down.
Good afternoon. Public Health has 3 items for your consideration. First is a request for approval to reappoint the Tarrant County Public Health Authority, Dr. Catherine Colquitt.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I have an audience participation from Mr. Perry, but I don't know if he just stepped out. I thought he was still here in the room. You think did he step out? Did he leave, or did he just go to the restroom? Do we know?
He took all his stuff with him.
Took all his stuff with him. Okay, so I'm going to assume that Mr. Perry, all he said was reappointment of Dr. Colquitt. So,
would you like me to check the other room, Judge?
if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and check that. But
he sat there for the longest.
I know.
What happened to him.
There's no one there, sir.
Okay. I see things happening out there. Just want to make sure.
He's not here, Your Honor.
Okay. Then, is there any further discussion? Please vote. Please, yeah. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Second item for your consideration is a request to approve the reappointment of our Deputy Tarrant County Health Authority and the local Rabies Control Authority, Dr. Kenton Murthy.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
The third item for your consideration is the approval to submit a grant application to NACCHO, which is the National Association of County and City Health Officials, for addressing the needs of public with disabilities. in COVID-19. It's in the response to the local preparedness planning, mitigation, and recovery efforts, and this is a request for application. If we receive this grant, we will receive an additional $83,000 from NACCHO for this effort.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please
Yeah,
vote.
I did just want to add that I was glad to see this on the agenda. I had some conversations with Guidehouse some time back about what resources were available for those in our community that have disabilities and, you know, the effects of COVID on them. So that's it.
Thank you.
Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vinny. Mr. Beecham?
We have 5 items for your consideration today. Our first item is a bid award recommendation for RFQ 2021-38, RFQ for juvenile forensic assessment services. Recommendation be to award to the 5 vendors as shown in the court communique in the amount of $155,000. If approved, we're also seeking contract approved from the court.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 2 is also a bid award recommendation for bid 2021-84. This is a contract for SAP Consultant Services. Recommendation be to award a per enterprise basis, awarding to the primary, secondary, alternate 1, alternate 2 vendors as shown in the court communique.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 3 is also a bid award recommendation for bid 2021-88. This is a contract for urine drug screening supplies for both CSCD and juvenile services. Recommendation be toward a per enterprise basis and discount from list price, awarding to Redwood Toxicology Laboratory.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 4 is also a bid award recommendation for bid 2022-19. This is a contract for HVAC water treatment services and water treatment equipment repairs. Recommendation be to award a unit price basis, hourly labor rate, markup for parts, awarding to the primary, secondary, and alternate vendors as shown in the court communique.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Last item in regards to bid number 2021-54 was a bid for, which was named a contract for tactical gear for the Sheriff's Department. We are recommending a rejection of both proposals and seeking to rebid with revised specifications. One of them didn't sign their addendum, the other one didn't fill out the rest of the bid entirely.
Move approval.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Commissioner Fickus has an interlocal agreement. I'll move approval of the interlocal agreement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Are there any appointments today? There being none, you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Anything else, Mr. Manius?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
Then we will recess our open meeting to proceed to close to discuss.
You're going to do this public comment?
Yes, I will. So thank you for stopping me there before I got too carried away. We have one final public comment. Mr. Manius, would you please read this? This is from a Mr. James Shelton.
Yes, Mr. Shelton's comment is this. I would like the process for allowing written comments to the court changed. Currently, the 600 character limit is barely adequate for someone to express their opinion to the court with no way to attach any supporting documents. In-person comments are given 3 minutes, while written comments will only be approximately 1 minute with the current limit. I do not believe that it is fair to limit someone's ability to interact with the court just because they are not able to be there in person. Please extend the limit on the current form or adjust the process in some way to make it more accommodating. When we receive this, Your Honor, we're going to look into this because there are some things that we may be able to change, and then we'll bring those recommendations back to court.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Mr. Manius. Now we will recess our open meeting to proceed to close to discuss items exempted on business to take care of at this time. We stand adjourned.